finally, yeah, after a delay because the printer didn't have any paper, volume 7 of the Library of Wisdom and Compassion was printed. It's officially published in the middle of next month, but we got an advance copy. So it's called Searching for the Self, and it has this beautiful picture of Manjushri on front, which I think is from His Holiness's personal collection, because I wrote to the private office and asked if they could send a picture, and this was one of the ones they sent. So it's volume 7 of the Library of Wisdom and Compassion, and it's the first of 3 volumes that are particularly on emptiness and dependent arising. So volumes 7, 8, and 9. Yeah, so this one's called Searching for the Self, and it's kind of introductory material to emptiness. That doesn't mean it's easy. It's just giving you some of the background and what are the 2 extremes that you want to avoid, and so on and so forth. And then volume 8 gets into the actual refutations that you meditate on to destroy the ignorance grasping true existence. And that volume is called Realizing the Profound View. And then volume 9 is entitled Appearing and Empty. And that's about the 2 truths. Imputed reality, living in a world of imputed reality, and imputed unreality. Well, it's reality in one way, it's unreal in another way. Yeah. And volume 9 also has the Yogacara and Svatantrika viewpoints and the Prasangika response to these. But back to volume 7, okay? So I want to go through briefly the table of contents to give you an idea about what's in it. And then on another BBC, I will read some things from the text. I was looking this morning at what to read, and there's so many really good parts, I couldn't really make up my mind. But I don't have to give that talk for another week or 2. Okay, so it starts out with introduction by His Holiness, helping us to set our motivation, which is always so important. And then it goes, first chapter is the importance of realizing the ultimate nature, emptiness. Okay, because we may say, well, why, this is hard to understand. Why do we have to do it? Can't we just have love and compassion? Love and compassion is easy to understand. Okay, it's hard to do, but emptiness is hard to understand. Yeah. Well, it's actually the key to liberation. We can't, cut the source of our dukkha, the ignorance, grasping, inherent existence, if we can't realize emptiness, which is the lack of inherent existence of persons and phenomena. And the first chapter also talks about, nature, emptiness, its nature, its purpose, its meaning, and also who is the correct vehicle for these teachings, because these teachings are quite profound and advanced. And actually, we have bodhisattva precepts not to teach it, emptiness, to people who don't have enough of a stable foundation in the Buddhist teaching, because it's too easy for them to misunderstand and then fall to the extreme of nihilism because they've misunderstood. And nihilism, of the 2 extremes, is the worst one, because if we say, well, everything's empty, and we misunderstand, and we think that means nothing exists, then it's very easy to give ourselves permission to do any kind of action and totally deny the law of karma and its effects. And that's what makes it so dangerous, to fall to the extreme of nihilism. The other extreme is absolutism, which is grasping at an inherent existence. And that's the one that keeps us in samsara, but you can still have faith in the law of karma and effects, even though you're grasping at inherent existence. Okay, chapter 2 gets into the Nalanda tradition, which His Holiness talks about so much, the great sages who carried the tradition in India. And Nalanda tradition doesn't just mean at the Nalanda monastery, but all the monasteries, Odantapuri, Vikramashila, and so on, that existed during that classical period in India and carried the teachings. Chapter 3 is an introduction to the philosophical tenet systems. So that gives an overview, at least of the two truths. It doesn't go into all the details of the tenet systems, but specifically the part that regards emptiness and dependent arising. So you get some kind of background, because there's many different. The point is, the Buddha spoke very much according to his audience. And so he said different things about the ultimate nature of reality to different people according to their interest, their disposition, their capacity. And so these became the different tenet systems. So it's good to know about them, because otherwise you may read different things that the Buddha said at different times and said, well, wait a minute, it sounds like he's contradicting himself. And he's not. It's just that he's a very skillful teacher. And so he gives people what they need at that time, because he knows if he gives them too much, then the resistance comes up. Okay, so that's chapter 4. Chapter 5 is we start comparing the assertions of the different tenet systems and talking about the different levels of the selflessness of persons and the selflessness of phenomena. Chapter 6 is talking about the objects that we cognize and the subjects, the minds that cognize those. Okay, so there's here an explanation about the different types of understanding we have, going from wrong view to having a direct perception of emptiness. And there's various stages in between. And it's very helpful to know these, because it helps us understand, what our present understanding or lack thereof is. Yeah. Otherwise, we can have some kind of, fantastic, ayahuasca experience and think we've realized emptiness when we haven't. Yeah. But this lays out the steps that we go through. Okay. Then chapter 7 is, again, the importance of realizing emptiness. And the first subsection under that is, who am I? And that's one of the ones I want to read, but it's really good. And then it talks about ignorance, the object of negation, okay, inappropriate attention, distorted conception, all the different layers of garbage we have on our mind, okay? And then it also talks about emptiness being a non-affirmative negative. In other words, it is a negation of a false way of existence that doesn't assert anything else in its place. Okay? And that's important to realize, because otherwise we can think, it's very easy to think that there's some positive phenomena, like some creator or one universal mind or one fundamental substance out of which everything originates. And so this really clarifies that from the Buddhist viewpoint, there's none of that. Okay. Chapter 8 is really dedicated to, it's called the Objects of Negation. Yeah, so it talks about here the objects negated by the path and the objects negated by reasoning. So what we use reasoning for is to negate inherent existence. And the path, which means the path consciousness, the mind that realizes emptiness, it negates the grasping at inherent existence. Okay, so the object negated by reasoning has never existed because inherent existence has never existed, but grasping at inherent existence exists in our mind right now, and that's an object negated by the path. It's removed by the path. Okay. And that chapter also talks about the Heart Sutra, and it's how it speaks of emptiness. Chapter 9 is the Middleway view. Okay, so it is talking about how there's the Madhyamika, the middle way, unique qualities, and there's a section, Samsara and Nirvana are empty and dependent. So sometimes we hear, well, Samsara and Nirvana are the same thing. And then you get really confused. Wait a minute, samsara is the state of dukkha that I want to stop. Nirvana is the state of liberation I want to attain. What does it mean that they're the same? It means that they're both the same in being empty. Yeah, on the ultimate level, their ultimate mode of existence, they're the same. On the conventional level, samsara and nirvana are completely different. Okay. And then it has a section on emptiness exists and is itself empty. Yeah. And so that counteracts the thought that emptiness is some kind of absolute extreme that itself is truly existent. Yeah. No, emptiness also arises dependently and is empty of true existence. Chapter 10 is the extreme of absolutism, that one that grasps at inherent existence. And so it talks a little bit about, because we usually talk of three vehicles, the hearer or Sravaka vehicle, the solitary realizer or Pratyeka Buddha vehicle, and then the Mahayana or the Bodhisattva vehicle. And the question arises, do they realize the same emptiness? Because when you study the tenet systems, some of the tenet systems say, no, what they realize is different. Actually, according to the Madhyamika view, they realize the same emptiness. There is only one ultimate nature, not many of them. There's a section on Buddhism and other religions, because the question often comes up, can you become enlightened by following another religion? And the question isn't about what you call yourself, I'm this religion or that religion. It's dependent on whether a religion negates inherent existence, which is the thing that causes us to be reborn in samsara. Yeah. So if other religions negate that, then yes, you can attain liberation by practicing them. But if they don't negate that, then you may create merit by practicing that religion, but you're not going to have the emptiness realizing reality. Okay. Then we have 2 chapters on the Pali tradition. So the chapter 11 is abandoning the 2 extremes. And so there it's talking about, how to relinquish wrong views and how to, perceive the 4 truths from the perspective of the Pali tradition. So it's very interesting because you really see the similarities with the Sanskrit tradition and sometimes the differences. Chapter 12 is on cultivating insight knowledge. And so this goes into more depth about the actual refutations found in the Pali tradition, yeah, which are really interesting. It starts by talking about the three characteristics, okay, that conditioned things are impermanent. They have, the conditioned things in samsara have the nature of dukkha, and they also lack a self. And then it goes into, these different refutations according to the 6 elements, which is very similar to one found in Ratnavali by Nagarjuna. Yeah, it talks about the 6 sets of 6 and different kinds of negations there. So it's quite interesting, and you can see how the Madhyamaka tenet system builds on what was taught in the Pali Suttas. And then there's a coda in this book too about the Pali Abhidharma, okay, which is very complicated, as is the Mahayana Abhidharma. Okay, but it's quite interesting, and with the Abhidharma, you can see the development of the meaning of some terms and how new terms are invented by the Abhidhammikas, the people interpreting the Buddha's teachings. Yeah, and then how the meaning of some of those terms changed as the philosophical tenet systems evolved. And it's something that is really the topic for if somebody wants to do a very interesting PhD, to look at terms like svabhava, yeah, which is translated as nature, which has many different meanings, and sometimes translated as own nature or self nature or inherent existence. And what does that word mean in the Pali system? What is it? How does the meaning of that word, develop as time goes on in India? Because we often think that when we hear the Buddha's teachings, they don't change over time. Yeah. Well, the essence of the teachings don't change, but the sages, first of all in India, and then later in Sri Lanka, in Tibet, in China, they explained, they fleshed out some of the difficult points of the teachings. And so in doing that, they developed different systems of categorizing things and different terms. And it's very, very interesting. And this is what we study nowadays because it really unpacks a teaching, because the Buddha gave the essence, but we all don't always understand the essence. Yeah, we need a lot of explanation because we're sometimes a little bit dense. Yeah, just a little bit dense, like, huh? But so the sages in the past unpacked all of this, and very helpful for us to learn it. So that is a brief overview of searching for the self. So we are searching for the self. And here, self, very interesting, has 2 different meanings. Talk about words having different meanings. One meaning of self is the person, I. Yeah, that self exists. It doesn't exist the way we think it does, but it exists. The word self also means the object of negation, inherent existence, which has never existed. So searching for the self, as a title, has 2 meanings. Yeah, You're searching for how the person exists, and you're searching to see if the person and other phenomena exist inherently or if they don't exist inherently. Okay, so that's volume 7. Yeah, it officially comes out, I think, May 17th, something like that. May 16th is Vesak Day in Chinese Buddhism, so it's quite auspicious, the date they're releasing it. And please read it and enjoy.